for those in the audience who might not know, so, sir, you are a congressman for 9 years. Conservative bona fides, I mean, impeccable. And yet not strong enough in fealty to the Trump world that you were immune from the pressure and the penalties that they might place on you.
Well, Donald Trump's not a conservative.
Exactly. But now you're the rhino. You with, and you and I probably disagree on most things.
Hopefully everything.
Well done, sir. Well done. But what is the pressure like? You know, I see so many Republican stalwarts who are on the record as saying, this man is a con man. This man is not worthy of the highest office of the presidency. This man defiles our great country. I'm supporting him in 2024. What is the mental process of that?
Well, it's really pretty simple.
Yes.
In order to get elected, you got to get 51% of the vote. And so there's this combination of wanting to do the right thing, so you run for office, and then you need to be popular in order to win. And the Republican Party now, a majority of Republican primary voters are MAGA supporters. And so you don't want to make the man mad who is really in control or strongly influencing the MAGA voters. So those folks are making a calculation. They want to stay in office.
What is in your mind, what's the percentage of that? How much of it is cynical calculation and how much of it is people like yourself leave and they are filled in by real ideologues who believe in that message? The message of it's really whatever Trump wants, having nothing to do with conservative principle.
Well, I think that there's 100% of the folks who are running for office who recognize that if they're going to win a Republican primary, they need to be Trump supporters.
Right. And that's what's happening. Was there discussion behind the scenes in Congress where people would say, I want this to end? Do they feel hostage to that?
I'm in both parties, honestly. In both parties, there is a real problem with the folks who are at the head of the ticket.
Right.
Obviously, Dean Phillips felt that way on the left.
Sure. No, I was a big Phillips supporter. Really thought he was going to go all the way.
No.
Remind me again, who is Dean Phillips? Now, you've said, so you've watched this process play out with Donald Trump. Would you say it's fair that it literally drove you from Congress?
I would not win a primary
right.
in the next election. Or if I won a primary, it would be because there were so many people who wanted to run against me that they split.
And what was the crime that you committed? Because your positions hadn't changed. So tell me the crime you committed.
So I don't know that it's a crime. Now that we're talking about verdicts and things like that,
yes,
I'm
sir.
trying to stay away from whatever crime.
You are not under oath in any way.
Whatever crime I committed, the statute of limitations probably hasn't run, so I want to make sure I'm clear there. But my goal in leaving Congress was to leave undefeated and unindicted, and I have accomplished that goal. So I'm very happy about that.
You got to aim higher next time.
Yeah.
You got to. You do have a frustration and complaints about the process of this Donald Trump trial. I think you called it shameful precedent? No. Shameful precedent? Is that correct?
The what?
A shameful precedent.
I think it is a bad precedent.
Okay.
And I was a prosecutor for 25 years.
Why do you think it's a bad precedent?
It is a bad precedent because Lady Justice, blindfold, scale, sword, the image of Lady Justice. Okay?
We went out in the 70s. I'm very familiar.
Okay. In this case, the blindfold came off. The blindfold is on because people shouldn't be targeted, and the system is flawed. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. People shouldn't be targeted because they're white or black, man or woman, Republican, Democrat, rich, poor.
Right.
The blindfold came off, and Donald Trump was targeted.
Now, how was he? I'm curious how he was targeted.
So Cyrus Vance was the previous DA, declined this case.
Okay.
Alvin Bragg brought a case where the misdemeanor had the statute of limitations had expired.
Right.
Found a felony to extend that statute of limitations, and then brought the case. I think
a felony, or there was a felony?
Well, there wasn't a felony for the previous district attorney.
I mean, many times district attorneys will say, I don't think the evidence gets to that standard, but another district attorney might come in and say, oh, no, that's a felony. He's doing that in order to manipulate an election. And that's a felony.
So this district attorney declined the case. Alvin Bragg declined the case and then brought the case.
Right.
And there was significant political pressure to bring the case. And that's something that our justice system needs to be insulated from. And the federal system has done a fairly good job of being insulated.
Right.
You've got Hunter Biden. You've got special counsel appointed on...
But Hunter Biden wouldn't be up against charges if he wasn't Hunter Biden. He'd be just some dude who brought a gun somewhere. He wouldn't be facing the charges he's facing.
Well, we probably disagree about that. I think that hopefully Hunter Biden would...
You think Hunter Biden would be facing, rather than like a rehab stint or something along those lines, you think the attention on Hunter Biden would be occurring whether his name was Hunter Biden or not?
I prosecuted hundreds of gun cases, some of them because drug dealers, drug users, drug addicts had purchased a gun, yes.
But doesn't that say more about this country's view on drug cases and how we prosecute them and how we excuse white-collar crime? We basically have a bargain with white-collar crime where we say, how about if you give us like 5% of it and everything will be fine? Like, isn't that not speak to political targeting, but the way that we diminish white-collar crimes? I mean, 2008, the financial system collapsed and one dude went to jail for like 3 months. I mean, I think Martha Stewart did a longer stint.
Which was a white-collar crime, by the way. But yeah, I think that I was a white-collar prosecutor for much of my 25 years. Absolutely. A black kid walks into a bank, robs a bank, 20 years. A white guy at a bank steals millions of dollars compared to $1,200, gets off with probation or goes to a camp in Florida for a few months. Absolutely inequitable. Absolutely. And Congress and
So
state...
couldn't you look at this as actually not a shameful precedent, but an unbelievably positive step in sending a message that the low level of corruption that seems to be the center of our political life is unacceptable? I mean, that was the way I would look at it. But I was not a prosecutor. I'm a prosecutor. I didn't think that was coming. I apologize.
Oh, no. You all get bonuses.
Yes, exactly.
So it is a dangerous precedent in my mind, because when we start charging former presidents, and I'm not saying that, look, I think what Donald Trump did in Atlantic City with the casinos and other things,
right.
There was fraud, and it maybe went beyond civil fraud, and there are plenty of things that people could look at and say that that's a criminal case.
Sure.
I think when you look at a former president, and he has gone up, how many civil cases now, and 4 criminal cases?
But let's be clear. I mean, Donald Trump didn't come into office a Boy Scout. He was probably one of the most sued individuals in New York State history. I mean, his first lawyer was Roy Cohn. You don't hire Roy Cohn and say to him, like, and I want to make sure everything's done on the up and up. Like, Roy Cohn, I think, was Donald Trump's lawyer and Satan's lawyer. I think, and if I remember correctly, even Satan would say to him, like, take it down a notch, Roy. That's a little...
Did Satan pay his bills?
He did not pay his bills.
Okay.
But my point is, this is a continuation of a process. So the targeting aspect of it, look, a healthy country would have viewed what Donald Trump did from the election day through January 6th, the way that he meticulously and relentlessly pursued all avenues to overturn a democratic election. That's what a healthy country would deal with. But a healthy country also looks at other aspects of what seem to be fraud. If you have a home office and you put it on your taxes, but you don't really have a home office, that's a problem for you, is it not?
Yes.
Why aren't they say, like, it's just a bookkeeping error of $130,000? Donald Trump colluded with his lawyer and a publisher of a major tabloid to buy and bury stories.
Not a crime.
That he would deem hurtful to his election, and then use the finances that he paid for those stories and put them down as not that. That is a crime, is it not?
No, he didn't put them down. He put them down in a ledger as not a payment for it. But so what would he? Well, you can falsify your own books. You just can't falsify your books when you submit them to the IRS. Oh,
so when he submitted them, he said this is.
He said it was a legal expense. It wasn't a campaign expense.
I understand the point you're making. So here's where this takes us, I think. I don't believe Donald Trump is the sole threat to our democracy. I truly don't. I think he is a symptom of a dissatisfaction that people have with the democratic system, where if you have money and you're powerful, you can go, oh, it's on my ledger as a legal expense. It's not a legal expense. It's not for my election. I think they see that his prescription of our system is correct. The system is rigged. And people's dissatisfaction with that is what leads to Donald Trump being able to command that dissatisfaction. Where I would disagree with him is I don't think he wants to drain the swamp. I think he wants the deed to the swamp signed over to him so that he can turn America into another subsidiary of the Trump organization. But I don't know. So my question to you would be, why is it bad precedent to pursue that case legally? Donald Trump, if he pursued the election fraud cases through the courts, and they impaneled a grand jury, and then it went to a trial with a jury of peers, and they decided on it, that's not illegitimate. And so why is this illegitimate? And by the way, that's my lawyer calling right now. With a quick, first of all, is that really your ringtone? Like, is your ringtone baby go nappy? All right, sorry. Getting back to our democracy. Look, I just find all this high dudgeon really disingenuous. The prosecutor ran on getting Donald Trump. Well, he's the DA. He runs on weeding out corruption, right?
Can I answer that?
Please.
I was a prosecutor.
25 years.
25, but I ran three separate times. Okay? I ran on, we've got to combat violent crime. Okay. We've got to go after repeat offenders.
Okay.
Never ran on, I'm going to get that guy.
But you could run on, I'm getting white-collar corruption. Alvin Bragg didn't say, I'm going to get Trump. What he said was, I'm the most qualified. This guy has a record in New York, decades long, of corruption. And I think it's, look, if you were Dick Tracy and you wanted to be the thing, wouldn't you be like, I'm going to get Scarface or whoever one of the Dick Tracy guys. Like, this was a guy pulling that. And the second point to that would be this. In 2016, what was one of the platforms that Donald Trump ran on? Let's get crooked Hillary.
Thank God he's not a prosecutor.
I understand, but do you get my point? The point is, this guy ran on Hillary is crooked and I'm going to put her in jail. And then with Biden, he said the Biden crime family is crooked and I'm going to put them in jail. And then a prosecutor in New York said, I have evidence you've committed a felony, so we're going to put you on trial. And he's like, what? How dare you, sir? What are we talking about? That's the only... What is this? What are we dealing with? I'm about to go to jail, aren't I, sir?
Respectfully.
Please.
Apples and oranges.
Why?
Because you've got someone in a political system. And how many people in America believe what a politician says?
Sir, no. Hey, tickets are free. I will throw you out of here. Respectfully. We're having a conversation. This is not Rome.
A prosecutor walks into a courtroom and tells a lie, and that prosecutor loses a law license and probably goes to prison.
Exactly.
So the difference between Alvin Bragg saying, I am going after that person, and Donald Trump saying that person should go to prison is two different forums.
Who has the more power?
Who has more, a candidate?
No, the president. And someone running for president. This is kind of a crazy argument you're making.
No. Let me finish. Bill Barr, great attorney general. Merrick Garland, great attorney general. Merrick Garland appoints a special counsel and then puts the report out that says that Joe Biden should not be prosecuted because he's a kind gentleman with a bad memory, something to that effect.
Right. That's not what he said, but okay.
Well, it's close.
What he said was he would present to the jury as a Connell general, which means I don't think we can win this case because I think he's too sympathetic a figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very different.
I apologize. I'm not trying to slander.
Objection no, sustained. No, objection, what's the...
I don't know.
All right.
It's a long time ago.
But my point being that if a candidate says, I'm going to get this person, that's all Alvin Bragg was at that time as a candidate. So why aren't you holding Donald Trump, who's running for president, to the same standard that you would hold Alvin Bragg? And not only that, when Donald Trump was president, he did impanel a special prosecutor to go after the Russian collusion hoax, that John Durham panel, and that was there to try and get charges against Hillary Clinton. You can't be mad at the Democrats for committing murder just because your team only committed attempted murder. Like, that just doesn't fly. They were successful in their prosecution as opposed to those other cases where you just tried to get her.
So Donald Trump never had the authority to request a search warrant, put handcuffs on somebody, prosecute somebody. That is always done by an independent Department of Justice.
Right.
On the other hand, Alvin Bragg ran for office to get that authority to do those very things. It's two separate situations.
Not solely, and also those things come with a process. He can't just go in there and go, arrest that guy. This isn't Navalny. This is a grand jury was impaneled of normal New Yorkers, not Alvin Bragg. And he presented his evidence. And they came back and said, yeah, there's a case here. So then they impaneled the jury. And then both sides got to choose.
You can indict a ham sandwich. That's what a grand jury is known
Okay,
for.
but generally you wouldn't convict a ham sandwich because at some point 12 New Yorkers would go, that's just a ham sandwich.
And we will see what an appeals court does. Look, you're putting me in an unenviable position of defending Donald Trump. I've spent a long time.
I'm putting you
people
in a position of defending the process that he was put through. That process has standards. You said it yourself. An appeals court is going to look at this. There are many safeguards within our legal system, and he's getting the benefit of almost all of them. In a way that poor New Yorkers will never get a sniff of.
I agree both.
So he's getting dewier process than anybody has ever gotten. So I don't understand, just because you don't like the result. He doesn't like the result of the election. Our elections are a fraud and we're a third world country. He doesn't like the result of a criminal case. Our courts are a fraud. Well, what would make them better? If they did what I wanted. No, that's not our system. No, that's a monarch.
I think what would make them better in his mind if they didn't convict him.
That's my point.
Yeah, but I don't think he wants justice in this country. I don't think he's standing up and saying we need justice. He's standing up and saying the election's stolen, so let's see if we can overturn the election in Congress. I didn't win in the courts, so let's go to Congress. I voted to certify those electors, by the way.
You walked out here, and you said to me, this is just 15 minutes ago. I promised I wouldn't do this. You said to me, I'll bet we don't agree on anything. And yet, sir, here we are. Agreeing. Détente. If we can do this, sir. How does this get repaired?
I retract my previous comments.
I will have the stenographer note those in the... how do we... My point in the first segment was... The courts have been a really important stopgap. I think our courts there is a two-tiered system, and poor people without access get screwed. But I do think it's played an important role in holding up certain things in terms of corruption. I think the news media has forgotten that can be part of their role. Is that something that you think could bring a sense more of an established reality, an earned authority from the media that could create some parameters that we can all sort of agree on? Is that something that you think would be possible?
I appreciate the question. I'm no longer a defense attorney. Now I could go to... I think we went from Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather to entertainment. And I think the problem...
Why are you looking at me? I had nothing to do with this.
I think the problem right now is everybody gets their news sources in silos, and they just keep getting reinforced with certain ideas. I went to a neighbor's house the day after the 2020 election. Their flag was upside down.
You live next to the Alitos? That's crazy.
I knocked on the door and asked them, your flag's up. I thought they made a mistake.
Oh, gosh. But they were sending a message.
Oh,
yeah.
And it's a crazy mess. There were kids playing across the street. There was
I
food
would
in the refrigerator, gas in the tank. There was, what's the distress?
You thought it was a dystopian, like The Last of Us kind of, yeah, they were falling apart. I wonder, too, if the algorithm, has played a role. People can say, like, well, they're in their silos. But I think also the algorithms of social media incentivize you to more and more radical content. They want to keep you engaged in the same way that the news media needs kind of fear and urgency. I always say it's built for 9/11, but in the absence of 9/11, they have to make you think like it's 9/11. Yeah. And I think the algorithm, plays a role in that as well, driving us into those holes. Lacking perspective. I don't know what you do about that, but.
Well, one, you create more competition. Facebook should have 5 Facebooks that they compete with, and hopefully there would be a point where.
What they do is they buy anything that even resembles a budding Facebook and stick it in their Facebook drawer.
Right.
That's the tough part.
Oh, it's.
Do you miss Congress in any way? Is there something about? Do you feel it was a job left undone for you? Do you feel? What are your ultimate thoughts about leaving the way you did and the unfulfilled potential of a government that is completely disconnected from the needs of its people, allowing demagogues like Donald Trump to rise?
Well, I left because I couldn't tell the lie. 2020 election wasn't stolen. The January 6th defendants aren't political prisoners. On and on. And so.
That's him saying that, not me. I just want to make that clear. I don't. If I ever decide to run for Congress as a Republican, I just want to make sure that that's Ken Buck saying that, not me. Continue.
Not agreeing to the party line.
Right. You're a victim of cancel culture.
Well, I'm not a victim of anything. I am absolutely blessed beyond belief with 6 grandkids and plenty of reasons.
6 grandkids?
6.5 grandkids. One on the way.
Oh, God. I'm sorry. I immediately went to like Solomonic wisdom of like, no, you're not supposed to do that.
No, but there's a lot of life out there besides
and it's
arguing about nothing and telling lies. And so I made a choice to go enjoy what I've got left.
What will break this fever in Washington?
America does great with a crisis. 9/12, America came together and we were a unified country.
For
so
like
I hope we don't get to
for
that
like
crisis.
7 hours.
Hope we don't get to that crisis point. But I think that there is a leader out there that will unify and help unify America. And it's somebody who has great morals, somebody who has great leadership skills, a John F. Kennedy. I probably wouldn't have said this 20 years ago, that he was a great hero. But you look at what John F. Kennedy did in terms of bringing the country together during the Cold War and moving us forward. There is somebody there that will help America heal and move forward.
You wouldn't happen to have a name, would you?
I know it's not Ken Buck, and I know it's not one of the 2 candidates leading the country in the polls right now.
Right. Well, I very much appreciate you coming back and having the discussion with us and come back and see us again. Much appreciated. Wish you the best. Former Congressman Ken Buck.